Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Ramadan Storytime with Sister Marsha. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today is Friday, Yom Juma, right? And so hopefully you all got a chance to go to the Juma prayer and be amongst the congregation. And that's always a really good feeling when everyone comes together. So I hope you got a chance to enjoy that. Remember, we are in the month of Ramadan, and each night during Ramadan, we are reading another story from the Quran Stories for Kids series. And tonight's story that I'm so pleased to be able to read to you comes from that series, and it's titled Tale of a Fish. And so we're going to find out tonight about this fish. And so without further ado, we're going to jump into our story. This one is Tale of a Fish. Quran Stories for Kids. And these are written by Sunny Yasmin Khan. Tale of a Fish. And so a tale is like a story, okay? Tale of a Fish. A very old and powerful community used to live around 800 BC in Nineveh, an ancient town believed to have been on the left bank of the Tigris River, some 230 miles northwest of Baghdad. Allah sent the prophet Yunus, or Jonah, alayhi salam, and remember we said that means upon him be peace. Allah sent the prophet Yunus to this community to guide them onto the right path. Yunus did as Allah said and went to these people. He gave them his message and warned them to turn away from their wickedness. Yunus preached to them for a long time, but they paid no heed to his words. When he realized that they intended to continue on the wrong path, he warned them about how bad their actions were and that in the end, they might be made to suffer. So he's coming to tell them that they need to change their ways, but they're not really listening. Angry and despairing, Yunus left these people. Yunus moved out of the city and headed toward the seaport where there were ships tied up, waiting to sail. One, Yunus found, was due to sail to a far-off land. He boarded the ship. And so there we see the ship in the water ready to sail. And so he's going to get on to this one. And it looks like some really fierce waves that ship is in. So let's see what we find out going forward. As soon as it was out at sea, the sky grew dark, and there was a terrible storm. The fierce wind began to whip the water up into huge waves, which crashed against the hull of the ship. As the storm grew worse, the waves became like towering walls of water, which came crashing down on the ship's deck. The sailors worked with all their strength to try to keep the ship on course. They even threw some of the cargo overboard to make the ship easier to control. But the ship's strong timber seemed as thin as matchwood in the teeth of the storm. And so what they did was they threw things off the boat to make it a little easier to control, but Even then, that water was so strong that it was tossing the ship around. Soon, they knew it would break up and they would all drown. Thinking their ill luck was due to some slave having run away from his master, they threw lots to find the runaway and hurl him overboard. The name of Eunice was picked out in the draw, and so they basically they picked out who this slave could possibly be that was making it so that they were in this storm, and they chose Eunice. So let's see what happens. The name Eunice was picked out in the draw, so he was forced to jump from the ship. As he struggled in the water, gasping for breath, a great whale appeared out of the depths of the sea and swallowed him up. The fish that swallowed Eunice may have been a sperm whale. That's pretty scary, right? Imagine having to be tossed off of the boat and then be swallowed up by the whale. But let's see what happens afterwards. Such whales are known to visit the eastern Mediterranean Sea. With their large throats, they can swallow the body of a man whole. That's a big whale. Suddenly, Eunice found himself in the dark, damp insides of the huge fish. He had not drowned. He was still alive. Now, Eunice realized that he had left the people of Nineveh too early without completing the task assigned by Allah. As a rule, once it became clear that a nation had rejected Allah's message, the prophet who had been the bearer of that message was commanded by Allah to leave, but only if he had done his very best to reform his hearers. Then Allah punished the erring people, or the people who were doing wrong, as a mark of his wrath. But Yunus had not waited for Allah's order. He had simply gone away, leaving the people of Nineveh to their doom. So Yunus was given an assignment. He didn't wait until receiving the order from Allah to leave. He left on his own. So he felt like the job was undone. So let's see what happens in our next pages. And there we see that big, huge whale again. When Yunus realized his mistake, he cried from the depth of darkness. There is no God but God. There is no God but you. Glory be to you. I have done wrong. Allah heard his prayers. The Quran says that if he had not said he was sorry and glorified Allah in his prayers, he would have stayed in the belly of the fish till the day of judgment. But since he cried out to Allah, let's see what happens. The fish, by the command of Allah, swam close to the land and brought Yunus safely onto the beach, where he found himself under a tree called Yaktin, or the gourd tree. It shaded him from the heat of the sun while he recovered from his ordeal. It also gave him a delicious fruit full of juice to quench his thirst. So Yunus was able to get out of this whale and be in a place where he was able to get some food and drink. Yunus then returned to his people and preached to them again. All of them, over 100,000, responded to his call. The lesson in the story of the prophet Yunus is twofold. That means that there's two things that we learn in this story. So let's see what those are. First, the great duty to deliver the message of Allah to others, now falls on every Muslim. If we ignore this duty and become desperate as Yunus was at first, we will be found guilty of not carrying out the task set for us by Allah. And so our first job, or the first lesson in this story, is that we have to deliver the message of following Allah to others. And then the second message says, so it's, the book says, secondly, the courage which was shown by Yunus as he nearly drowned is a great example and shows us that we should never despair of the mercy of Allah. If we are on the right path and say we are sorry for our failings, Allah will help us as miraculously as he did when Yunus was saved from the raging sea by the giant fish. And so the second lesson is, never think that you've messed up so bad that Allah can't help, but you do have to be conscious, or you have to know that you can call on Allah even when you've done something wrong, and you have to ask for forgiveness. And so that's our story for today. Remember that the title of this story is called Tale of a Fish, and it gives us a story about the Prophet Yunus being in the belly of the whale. And we learned two lessons. One is that we have a job uh, to give the message, and the second is that it's never so bad that we can't ask Allah for forgiveness. And so, with that, thank you so much for joining me for this Ramadan story time with Sister Marsha. I'm so glad that you allow me to read these stories to you. I hope that you have a good rest of your evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of Ramadan. I look forward to reading the next story to you. And with that, I'll say good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Until next time.